You are listening to Swamp Things, a podcast about University of Florida sports with the Orlando Sentinel's Edgar Thompson and the AP's Mark Long. Edgar and Mark discuss the goings-on with the Gators in Gainesville, where each is a longtime resident who has seen championship success, coaching turmoil, and plenty of drama on and off the field.
Greetings and welcome to Swamp Things, a podcast about the Florida Gators. It's December 30th, 2025. I'm Edgar Thompson of the Orlando Sentinel, joined by Mark Long of the Associated Press here in chilly Gainesville, Florida. Hope everyone enjoyed their holidays and family time. Mark and I was just doing a fashion show. I got my holiday beanie on from my mom. Thank you, Mom, who watches faithful Swamp Things viewer. And we're also wearing not matching, but wearing hoodies. Not Billy Napier, but kind of the Billy Napier motif. Anyway.
It's chilly.
It is chilly. I know Phil Stanbaugh doesn't like hearing weather updates, but I'm freezing. I took this beanie off. I was joking before we got on here because I didn't want to wear it because it's like, I was going to let my baldness grace the screen, but 10 or 15 degrees like that colder. So I threw it back on. This thing's warm. I tell you what's warming up, Mark, is the transfer portal. It's time to get back into reality here at Swamp Things. And I mean, this is like the cold reality of college football 2025/26 is this confluence of the transfer portal and NIL, man. I mean, I would not want to be Jon Sumrall or GM Dave Caldwell right now. Those have been around a while. What the portal came in, October 18, NIL July 1st, 2021. But it feels different this time around to me a little bit. And it's because I guess the transfer portal window has been moved up ahead a month, right? But it's like we have players entering the portal, others negotiating deals. This stuff's all really public too as the deadlines approach. And then some are announcing their returns, and which I find we're going to discuss that as we go on. But it's a little bit odd for players to be announcing they're going to come back for like their sophomore year, after being kind of a rotational player. It's just hard to keep up with all of it. But what do you make of it? I mean, do you have like a 30,000 foot view of what it all means?
Well, some of it is negotiating tactic, posturing, leverage. I think that's what you need to look at. This is different, right? This isn't free agency in the NFL where who's got a contract and who doesn't, and only those guys who are free agents are in the mix, right? Everybody else is under contract. This is different, and you just got to look at it as new coach, new GM, new money on the table, because that's what this is. This is guys looking with their hand out. Hey, new coach, new GM, I want more. Or, hey, I'm going to have a bigger role. I want more money. Or, hey, Texas A&M's offering me this. Can you match it? And there's a lot of that going on. How much of it is real? How much of it is manufactured? That's the hard part for the teams, really. They're at a disadvantage because they don't know what's real and what's not, what agent is pulling your leg a little bit. I think there are ways to circumvent that in the NFL when you're only talking about 31 other teams. It is much more difficult to navigate and circumvent that and figure out what's right and wrong when you're talking about 129 teams, 60-something power fours, all these oil money teams with deep pockets. So it's just hard. I think it's very difficult to figure out. And that's my 30,000 foot view. I think I look at it and I go, okay, guys are going to enter and they still could be back. And I think that's how the fans should look at it. You don't want to burn bridges from a fan standpoint. You don't want to burn bridges from a front office, head coach, player standpoint, because you don't know. The portal's not open. And even if you have a tentative offer, nothing can be signed right now, not legally anyway. So, all of this, I would say, take a wait and see approach, grain of salt, see how it unfolds, and shakes out in 2 weeks?
Yeah, well, it opens Friday officially and runs 2 weeks through January 16th. And have some a little clarity on maybe some guys who are definitely gone. DJ Lagway being the headliner, he's definitely history. Can't see any situation where he ends up back in Gainesville. LSU and Miami seem to be two big players there, which neither of those scenarios would sit well with Florida fans, I don't think, especially if he goes and plays like we thought DJ would play this past season before all the injuries and loss of confidence, etc. Jordan Costello, Hayden Hansen, Aiden Mizell are not coming back either. Now, we're talking about relevant players here, right? I'm not going to go down the whole list of guys that maybe weren't factors and are just looking for, whatever, a better situation or weren't wanted. Let's just be honest, right? It's like, okay, nice knowing you. Tre Wilson seems to be leaving too. This came out during the holidays. On Christmas Eve, no doubt. I mean, it's like going into the portal on Christmas Eve. It's like, okay, thank you. I'm back to my meal now. But will any of them be missed, Mark? Any of these guys?
I think Aiden Mizell was a promising guy. I thought he showed a lot of promise, has good hands, has good range of motion, certainly catch radius. I liked a lot. I always wanted more of Aiden Mizell. He couldn't stay healthy, though. And that's his issue, right? You look at these guys, Hayden Hansen underperformed, Jordan Costello underperformed, DJ Lagway couldn't stay healthy, Aiden Mizell couldn't stay healthy, Tre Wilson couldn't stay healthy. So what's happening here is the new regime, the new staff are trying to reset an inflated market. And it got inflated by Billy Napier. Billy Napier overpaid a lot of these guys, overpaid guys he recruited, guys he needed, guys he felt he had to have or had to keep, overpaid them. So Florida's got this inflated, bloated roster on a 4-8 team. And somebody's got to come in and take a hard stance, a hard line stance, because Florida doesn't have super deep pockets, and take a hard line stance and go, you're not worth it. You're not worth what you're asking. You're not worth what you're paying. So if you want to stay, and we want you to stay, but you got to take a pay cut. And guys it's an eye-opening process. It's a lot of hurt feelings. So guys immediately get hurt, jump in the portal and go, hey, I'll find somewhere else better. I'll find somebody to pay me. Now, I don't know if that's going to be the case with all these guys. And some of them might have to come crawling back to Florida and go, what was that deal you offered? Well, now the deal's down, right? The deal gets taken off the table when you jump in the portal. So there's a lot of moving parts here. But really, honestly, the guys who Florida are letting walk and gladly letting walk are guys they don't want to be here. And that's the cold, hard truth. And that includes DJ Lagway, Jordan Costello, Hayden Hansen, Aiden Mizell, and Tre Wilson.
So we were talking, I'm going off script here for a sec, about guys who have left for the portal in the past who have impacted. One is starting 2 days from now for Texas Tech, Caleb Douglas, pretty good receiver, very good, in fact. And when he left, I think there was a little kind of like, we didn't really want to lose him. He's thriving there. He's a Texas kid. I don't know if he's an NFL player. I think he's got that potential. I mean, he's got the size. He's a good player. Antoine Power Island, who left, led the ACC in sacks, maybe. He had like 10 at Tech, Virginia Tech. David Reese, remember, went to Cal, became pretty good linebacker, I believe. I'm forgetting some guys. You had a few off the top of your head. I just jotted them down while you were talking. But is there anybody you feel like went off somewhere and became a superstar? Because I could see of the guys we know are definitely gone or think you're definitely gone. Mizell could be, if he could get healthy and maybe a little more bulk. Tre Wilson, man, could be something if he can stay healthy and gets in a system that uses him. And DJ, of course, we know what he could become, or we think we know. I mean, if he can clean up his fundamentals starting there and his health. Is there anyone they've lost so far?
Well, I mean, Chris McClellan was a good player for Missouri this year. Mm-hmm. Scooby Williams was a good player for Texas A&M. for 2 years.
Tyrone Hopper, Missouri.
Tyrone Hopper, the Utah defensive end who got spun around by Anthony Richardson in the swamp. Diabate. There have been a few, but there haven't been any great players leave Florida and go on to become huge stars somewhere or NFL prospects. It's actually flipped in Florida's favor the other way when you look at guys like Osiris Torrance, Shim DK, made the Pro Bowl as a rookie, as a returner. Certainly the defensive Pearsall, the defensive end who came from Jonathan Garrard. So Florida's certainly had a better impact in terms of luring talent than losing talent.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to chart those guys' careers. And, obviously we'll be dealing with all the new players ourselves.
Well, it's going to become an impossible task. What it's going to become is it's going to become like certain people you'll remember, like in the recruiting realm, guys who got away. Like what was the guy who was the Texas receiver who was a Florida commit and then Isaiah Bond. There'll be guys like that you'll remember.
He didn't turn out to be that great.
But there'll be names like that you remember, and some diehard fans remember, oh, that guy was committed and he bailed on the Gators and turned out pretty good. And that'll be the same here. There'll be guys who are in the program for a year or two, transfer out, and then, you don't necessarily even remember their name till maybe you see them playing. I wouldn't have been able to pick. I don't know. You could have given me a roster, and I would have not remembered David Reese becoming a good linebacker at Cal, until you said it, and then I was like, oh yeah, there was that. I don't know how good he was.
I think he was decent, but I don't know what he's doing now.
Yeah, but it will become, certainly, if this thing stays where it's at, which who knows? I don't see any end in sight right now. Any kind of real rules coming down the pipe that will give teams a little more authority over contracts, a little more ability to sign a guy to a 3-year deal and it actually be a 3-year deal. I don't know. It seems like the players have all the leverage and all the power and all the autonomy, and the teams are at a significant disadvantage right now.
That's after 100 years of players not, but it's swung just so far to the opposite extreme. It's crazy.
Pendulum theory.
Yeah, we have other players, again, relevant players, not Wangne, or however you say, Wangoy, whose parents, aren't pod listeners over in England. Sorry. But I mean, guys like that, they weren't even why they ever ended up here in the first place. And, Billy took some risk on some really, some projects, to say the least, that are leaving. But guys reportedly entering the portal, that are pretty big, are Jayden Woods, edge rusher, Mekhi Barrow, nose tackle, and now Aaron Gates. Just before the pod kicked off, Hayes Fawcett's reporting, we really like Aaron Gates. You identified Aaron Gates. There were 2 number 13s of the 2024 spring game that jumped off the page. One obvious, Jadan Baugh. The other was Aaron Gates to you. You were like, man, I really like that number 13 on defense. And I mean, he's spectacular when he's healthy. Again, another injury-prone guy. Barrow, who by all accounts was not really healthy most of last season and did miss 3 games, but I think he's got NFL nose tackle potential personally. I like him, but he might be asking for too much. Jayden Woods, I hear he's negotiating as we speak. So these guys aren't gone necessarily, but they might be 1 foot out the door. But again, Amir Jackson, who was going to be my X factor coming into this season and was anything but, he left or was going to leave, and now he's back. I think that was a pretty good get. I think he's got a lot of upside, a lot of athleticism. And if he's used like in an H-back more role, and you're not asking him to block and play 12 personnel, right? I think he could be a factor for sure in the passing game. But yeah, so again, back to your posturing, leveraging point of earlier.
Yeah, I think a lot of this is that you have to generate leverage, and you do that by threatening to leave. Whether or not you want to leave, whether or not you're actually going to leave, you have to at least threaten to leave. Most people in corporate America, you get a raise when somebody else is offering you another job, right? You test your worth, and that's where you get a real value, right? So these guys, I think as we talked about already, is Billy Napier is going to get a lot of the blame on this, but Billy Napier, Jacob LaFrance screwed this thing up. They overpaid enormously. I mean, we've talked about this already. 54 coaches. They had 54 coaches on staff. You talk about a bloated program. This was a bloated program, and you weren't getting the results. It'd be one thing if you had 54 coaches and you were spending, $30 million and you got 10-2 out of it, right? And a CFP bid. But when you're spending $25 million or $20 million, or whatever the number is, I think it's 25 they spent last year, $25 million, and you got 54 coaches, one for everybody on the 2 deep, and a handful left over, and you go 4-8, what are you doing? Yeah, there's no return on your investment right there. So it needs to be, areas of it need to be flatlined. They call flattening, right? You flatten a whole department sometimes. Some of that needs to be flattened. And certainly you have to almost blow it up to reset the market, because the market in that building at 4-8 was not commensurate with the performance and the payout, the payback, the payoff, whatever you're getting. Yeah,
no, you nailed it. And when we're saying 54 assistants, I think we're including strength staff too. And There was this whole Billy. I mean, Billy thought he was playing 4D chess when he was playing checkers, but he was had an a strength coach for every position, right? And maybe you do that in some way, but I mean, literally a guy assigned to receivers and cornerbacks, and it was overwrought. It didn't work. It was too many moving parts. He was a very good organizer in some ways. On some fronts, we've complimented him. We don't need to go through the litany of ways that he did organize some things better for player experience. I mean, certainly the team GPA was the highest ever was, things like that you can point to as successes. They like the Gatorade program they've inherited here, and they're going to keep it. But then there's all that where it was who knew nobody knew what the right hand and what the left hand was doing. And it showed up on game day. And it was always just discombobulated. So,
and the reality, I'll finish on this and let you move on. But with all of these guys, they're going to walk in your office and you go, this is the one line that I don't know how anybody can dispute it. We went 4-8 with you. So don't try to come in here and tell me, hold out your hand for $1 million and tell me you're a difference maker. We went 4-8 with one win was a steal job against Mississippi State, and another win was Long Island University, and a third win was just a miserable Florida State team that was trying to fire its coach and couldn't.
And they gave up as the difference maker. The Gators are trying to get back. Jadan Baugh, ran wild on them. So there are a couple big fish deep in talks. I feel like I'm forgetting someone, Mark, remind me, but Jadan Baugh and Dallas Wilson seem to be the two biggies they're trying to get back. And I would think you have to sign Baugh. He's an incredible player to build around. He's a versatile player. He's a guy who can catch and run between the tackles. He can get outside. Now, he might not have the home run speed of a Fred Taylor, who did, very few, but he does have a lot of Fred Taylor similarities in terms of size, in terms of just impact potentially, right? I mean, he could have a Fred Taylor year his junior year, a big one. I think the guy could be a 1,500 total yard from scrimmage guy easily in a good offense, easily, with his catching ability. But you have your theory on running backs. You would like to have back Dallas Wilson, but all we saw of him was one spectacular game, and that's it. I mean, he was hurt, foot injuries. They don't heal quickly. They sometimes don't heal properly. Sometimes they don't heal ever. Go talk to Bill Walton. So you don't know what his long-term health is going to be and his availability, though you would like to have a guy with his measurables And in that one game against Texas, and then the one catch against A&M where he made that spectacular catch in the end zone, you saw enough to see, yeah, we'd like to have him on our offense.
Yeah, he looks special. Baugh looks special. And I think here's more than anything, Edgar, I think it sends a message that, hey, we're going to keep our core guys. We're going to this is not a complete rebuild. We recognize that there was some talent on this team, and we're going to do everything we can to keep it. Going to Baugh, I mean, my theory is always, the NFL theory right now is running backs don't matter. I do know that the people in the front office believe that running backs do matter, and certainly much more of a factor at this level than in the NFL, where they're a little more disposable. You use them up and move on to the next guy. College football, you can actually have absolute difference makers. And we saw Baugh at his best against Florida State, 38 carries, 266 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And that was fantastic. And we calling for him to get the ball more all season, and he didn't do it for whatever reason. But I know there are other guys that I believe they have targeted that if he leaves, they think they could be okay with somebody else. Same thing with Dallas Wilson. Again, you went 4-8 with these guys. How good really were they? Or are you looking at it and going, this coaching staff was so awful that you bring in a legitimate coaching staff? And we're seeing that in Jacksonville, right? The Jacksonville Jags, 4-13 last year, and they're 12-4 right now. 1 year, and they're having a complete turnaround. And it's not because they went out and got 50 new players. It's not like they completely overhauled the roster. They barely have anybody from their draft class contributing. So it's the same players, and it is significantly better coaching. So that is, no doubt about it, that is and can be a factor here for sure.
Yeah, Ron Zook used to always say it's not about the X's and O's, but the Jimmy and Joes. And I won't dispute you need great talent, and the best teams have the best talent typically. Look at the playoff. But X's and O's matter. And Buster Faulkner, the new offensive coordinator, is well-respected in that department. And again, you got to think someone like Jadan Baugh, a piece like Dallas Wilson, and some others we're about to get to really.
Coaching matters, right? That's what you're trying to say. Coaching matters. And just let me finish on Baugh. One quick
Look at Cignetti. The execution,
yeah.
Look what he's done. He's taken JMU players, taken them to the Big Ten, and they execute. And I don't know how far they're going to go in this playoff, but I like their chances to win.
And just to give our listeners a little bit of a ballpark, if the numbers we're hearing are accurate, which I do believe they are, Jadan Baugh has a $1.3 million offer from Florida, give or take. 1.3 is the ballpark. Texas is offering 1.5. So Florida's offer is absolutely competitive. The question is, where does he want to be? I don't know that he's going to up and leave Florida for Texas for $200,000. That's, when you're talking about that kind of money, it's still significant money. But I don't know if it's the devil you know versus the devil you don't know. He likes it here. He knows he's going to get the ball. He knows they're going to want to run the ball. He goes to Texas. Who knows? They might build that whole entire offense around Manning moving forward. I don't know that they will. I think, Sark wants to run the ball. But again, that's what we're talking about here. These guys are making decisions. And I think the real issue, the frustrating part for Florida, and we may have mentioned this last week, I know we did, or whatever we did the last pod, which is these guys, there's no incentive for these guys to sign, because you're not going to pull Jadan Baugh's offer off the table because he hasn't signed it, but he has no incentive. The portal opens, and maybe there's some teams waiting for the portal to open to actually offer him 1.7, 1.8, whatever. Somebody finds out what he's the Texas is the 1.5 number, and they know where they got to go. They got to get in to beat it, right? So all of that comes into play, and there's no incentive. It's not like he gets anything by sign. He can't sign right now. He could sign with Florida. He could re-sign with Florida, but there's no incentive to do it because you want to see what happens when the portal opens.
So a number of key players have signed and announced their returns. I'm going to go through the list. Vernell Brown, Myles Graham. You have the 2 young defensive tackles, Jeremiah McLeod, Joseph Mbachu. You have Myles Graham's sidekick, Aaron Childs at linebacker. You have Dijon Johnson, the cornerback. You have TJ Abrams, who came on as a nice receiver down the stretch. You have Laganza Hayward, the safety, or nickel maybe, wherever he fits. You have Cam James, the defensive end from Orlando. You have Rod Kearney. I think that's the list so far. There are also some pending announcements. It sounds like Javari Flowers is in the fold. Jaden Robinson's getting close, maybe, I'm hearing. LJ McCray, who really, this is a critical year for him. I mean, he'll be a redshirt sophomore, but big things were expected from him. Top defensive line prospect in 2024 and has everything you'd want. I mean, he needs to continue to maybe get a little stronger upper body, but man, he's got a lot of ability. Duke Clark, we really kind of liked the little flashes we saw him at running back, which I think is a big reason Katie Daniels hit the portal, and maybe Tryon Webb could. My Cam James fascination continues. I keep waiting for him to be like a potential star, really. I think has the length, the get off, and he really came on as the season progressed and really kind of supplanted Tyreek Sapp, who was predicting a sack record and ended up with 2 or 3 on the season, and Cam James came on. I think he could really thrive in the right scheme. Brad White has turned some pretty good guys, defensive line and edge guys, into millionaires at the NFL level. Is there anyone on that list, though, other than VB3 and Myles, who are the obvious ones that you really like that is re-signed?
Yeah, I mean, listen, you need to build it. I've said this for months, maybe even years at this point. If you fix Florida's lines, you fix Florida. And I don't think they were good enough up front on the offensive line, first off, and then even on the defensive line. But I liked that young talent on the defensive line. So to me, Mbachu and McLeod, to me, are 1 and 1A in terms of guys you want back, guys you can build around, young guys, lots of talent. They look the part. I think Mbachu only played 9 games, if I'm right there. Yeah, 9 games. He only had 11 tackles. But again, we saw some explosiveness there, and we saw some things that we liked, and so did the Gators. And that's why they targeted him as a guy they wanted back. And the same thing for McLeod. I thought the guy really flashed late. Freshman, that's the other thing. These guys are freshmen, both already filled out, grown men at 18, 19 years old with a tremendous upside. And that's really what you want, because I don't think it's an important part of this is that nobody's saying that Florida can't win in year 1, but I think the target in the building is to build this thing from year 1 to year 2 to year 3 and really, really have it rolling in year 2 and year 3 under Jon Sumrall. And that means increasing. You try to get a $30 million payroll in year 1 if they can get to that. And that includes, you help me with the numbers, but it's 15.8 in rev share. Mm-hmm. And then you're talking about another 10 to 15 in NIL money on top of that. So a roster that's you're paying $30 million to in year 1, that's the goal. Up that in year 2 to $40 million, and then up that in year 3 to $50 million. That would be at some ideal numbers that Florida's looking at to get this thing built. There are people in the building who believe that $50 million is what the top teams in college football are going to be spending on their roster every year.
Ideal or obscene?
Well, it's obscene, but it's obscene unless you compare it to the NFL.
No,
and then it looks like a bargain.
No, it does. And again, in fairness, these young men risk a lot. They work endlessly at their craft, and they're paying for everything. They're tennis players, they're lacrosse players, they're golfers. All these people are reaping, the rewards of the seed sown by the football program, and maybe a little bit from men's basketball in terms of revenue generated. No other programs generate revenue, and many lose lots of money. And these guys are going out there and risking their neck, like literally you've seen in some tragic cases. I'll say this, Mark has got a pretty good eye, picks up on things. He had Mbachu nailed early on as well. We were watching him at a practice. We had one like open practice or something, just working Jake Slaughter. Remember that? You were just like, man, this 97 kid is like just dominating Jake Slaughter on some plays. He's an impressive physical specimen. I'll tell you though, man, this announcing thing, I mean, I'm going to be the old man that yells at clouds for a second. Kind of chaps my rear end. But I want you to go first here because you covered the Tax Slayer Bowl. Mark didn't get the holiday I did. I was lucky enough to receive. He had to go cover that game. Virginia, Missouri, which I watched with my dad. It was an exciting game if you're a Virginia fan, which my father is. Otherwise, it was pretty dreadful, 13-7. But came down to the last play, though. Eli Drinkwitz, a Missouri coach who was on the Gators' radar, but ended up staying at Missouri and getting an extension, had some interesting thoughts on this whole announcing thing, right?
Well, yeah, he made a comment about, these guys are getting ripped and laughed at and ridiculed for announcing they're coming back.
By me.
Yeah, by everyone. I think he's checking out social media, and having followed Drink, I think he's got a lot of good insight. The guy is super smart, and he really has his finger on the pulse of what's going on. Has some good ideas, shares them openly. But what he said was, it's an absolute. He praised it. He's like, this is what we need. We need it not so much but he's like the fans need to hear it. Who's coming back? Because there's a lot of uncertainty. But really, the other players, he likes it because it sends a message, especially in these when teams are not together. Now, his team has been together, since Christmas and played a few days. But then afterwards and going into the portal and during the portal, he's like, listen, it's important. Some of these guys are not necessarily in touch with each other all the time, 24/7. So it's good to see who's making these decisions. It's good for roster building. It's good for the portal, for other guys to know who's going to be there, who's not, what's the depth chart going to look like, what stars are coming back, what guys are moving on, all that. And he said it's an imperative piece that we need to embrace, that he thinks it's good for the sport right now.
I was trying to pull up Kirby's comments, but his more reflect my feeling about it. And I'm naive and gullible, as you like to always say, and I certainly am. But you're a freshman makes 11 tackles or 13 tackles. And you flashed, as you said, because that's what those two young men did. And they certainly are, have tremendous futures, if they can stay healthy ahead of them. They are announcing they're coming back for their sophomore year. It's like, okay, that's just a given. You come back for your sophomore year, you work your tail off during spring, summer, off season, all this. You come back by the second half of your sophomore year, maybe you're like even kind of a rising star, maybe. And then your junior year, you come back and you're a leader of a defense. That's a good defense. That's kind of how it used to work for like decades. Now, again, these young men were being exploited before Alston money or cost of attendance. I mean, you're getting only a scholarship. You talk to old players, they were like, man, we couldn't even take a girl to a movie. Now, then the Alston money came, which is pushing $5,000, maybe $6,000 even, for a 4-month period each semester, and cost of attendance, which is another $400. So let's say you're getting $1,000 plus $400. Let's say, just for the sake of argument, $1,500 a month in addition to your scholarship money, and then you give these kids $2,500 to $5,000, maybe even give the stars $10 a month. I mean, that's pretty damn good for a 19, 20-year-old to live on, but it's just not even close to that. I mean, your Billy was signing guys fresh out of high school for $5, $10 a month or more, and they're driving luxury automobiles. So it's kind of like, like you said, there was sticker shock. Billy kind of set the market in a way that was distorted. But it is kind of like, to me, and I know you're sitting there, I know that look of Mark. He's like, just, okay, keep going. But it's like, it is a little bit kind of disconcerting that like that would be like you write a couple of good profiles and break a story your first year on a beat, and then you're coming to your editor during after the season and wanting to write columns all of a sudden or whatever. It's like, no, just get better next year, and by your third year, you're going to be a force on that beat if you keep working at it. And it's just an older school paradigm. It doesn't apply to the world that we operate in. It's definitely nothing that we can relate to. It's just, I just find it, I know I'm being a little, what's the word I'm looking for?
Ornery, grumpy old man.
No, I'm being optimistic. I'm being idealistic. That's the word.
Yeah, you are. And that's here's the thing, and the reality is,
I'm being grumpy. I think I'm being.
No, I'm kidding. You've got to basically take the playbook that we've had for our entire careers and throw it in the fire, like rip it to shreds, because the playbook is not it's not the plays. They're not running the plays that we learned when we were cutting our teeth in this business, when we first started covering college football, or for the 20 plus years that we've been covering college football. It's a totally different playbook. And if you're looking at the wrong playbook, it's all going to seem weird and odd and archaic to you, or not archaic, but certainly new wave compared to what you're used to. And the coaches who are thriving, the programs that are going to really take the next step in this, are the ones who throw out that old playbook and embrace NIL and embrace rev share and embrace finding ways to do it better than everybody else, finding new ways to raise money, finding new ways to generate interest, just finding new way. I think, you got to all you got to do is look at the bowl games. What are the bowl games that are the most intriguing? The non-CFP bowl games are the ones that are doing crazy stuff, like the Pop-Tarts Bowl or the Birmingham Bowl, that's going to pit two rivals against each other, and it's going to sell out because it's a rivalry game. That's what you just got to throw out these old school ways of thinking and embrace what sells right now. And what sells right now is money, right? It's transactional. That's what Billy Napier did not want. He did not think college football. He did not want college football to become transactional. He thought it was still relationship based. He's wrong. It's transactional. And that's a lot of life right now. I mean, it's true. What are you going to pay me? What kind of a deal am I going to get? What am I going to get in return? How much playing time am I going to get? Where's my better chance to get to the NFL? All those things are still in play. But, what are you doing for me right now is probably more important than what are you going to do for me 3 years from now?
There's an entitlement element to it that's a little bit off-putting, but it's understandable. I'm not in these guys' shoes and never have been. Never, you could take literally a walk-on off the Gators, put them on my high school football team in 1983, and we probably wouldn't have lost a game. I mean, or someone like Myles Graham, if we had, right? I mean, we probably wouldn't have been scored on. It's like these guys it's such a love. They're operating at such a different reality than anything we can relate to. I hear your point, and I get it, and I need to accept it. Adapt or die, right?
There you go.
Jon Sumrall, is filled out his staff, and there are about a half dozen hires from the 2025 Tulane staff. And I put on the script will list. I'm not going to list them, but there are a couple that stand out to me. Here, first off, it's led to a lot of comments about Sumrall. He doesn't hire his friends. Remember he said that? We ended up hiring a bunch of guys that maybe he has histories with, going back to Troy even, and some of them like going back to their threads to like Kentucky with one or two, and there are various ones like that. I think there's something to be said for continuity, but is there anyone among them that you like? Did you take a minute to review, and do you see one maybe that you liked?
Well, not really. I haven't dug in beyond the coordinators. I like his strength coach he brought with him. Everything you read about this guy,
he's impressive.
Yeah, everything you read about this guy, old school, hard-nosed, really no nonsense type guy. And I do think that there's going to be an element of that with this program of, hey, we're going to, it's shape up or ship out. And whether or not Billy was running a lax program or letting the inmates run the asylum remains to be seen. I don't know if that's necessarily the case, but I do think in that building, there's a sense that these guys were getting away with a lot given the results, right? When you're 4-8, you're 6-6, you're missing bowl games, it shouldn't be easy, right? You should be having to fight for every damn thing over there. And, I think we've talked about was there a sense of, they move into this posh building in 2022, 2023?
No, it was
2022.
They moved in there 2022 with their $15,000 lockers and Nortec boots, anti-gravity chairs.
Sure. And so was there a sense of, and they're fed basically all day, all they can eat. Was there a sense of entitlement? Was there a sense of we've made it, maybe not quite as hungry as, the old ways, having to walk across campus, the humbling aspects of that, of having a locker room in the bowels of the stadium and not having that posh facility. So there's talk about that, right? But I do think that this staff is going to come in, and like most first-year staffs, right? You've got to earn everything. You've got to prove to me that you want to be on the field. You got to show it every single day in practice. And I think there's a sense of what Billy was running was, hey, I know who my main starters are, and everybody else is, gonna have to flash on special teams.
So Rusty Witt, fascinating guy, played safety at Abilene Christian in the early to mid 90s, went up coached various stops, was at Sam Houston State for 5 or 6 years under Casey Keeler, who was a legendary coach, 250 game winner, I believe there. Then he goes into the Army, communications sergeant in the Special Forces, and was awarded a combat infantry's badge, 2 Iraqi campaign medals. I mean, this guy, he's a no-nonsense dude. And then he's gotten back into it, and he's been with Sumrall both at Troy and at Tulane. So he's fascinating. Some of the others, Bam Hardman's coming back to coach linebackers. He was here last season was Ron Zook's first, 168 tackles. I think it's 4th all time. He's coming. And he was with him at Tulane with Sumrall, that is. And there's some others. Joe Craddock, his OC, is going to coach quarterbacks. I kind of like that. Some people like the OC coaching quarterbacks, but you got to put eyes on a lot of things, and you need someone who's working on all the fine points of the quarterbacking position, in my opinion. Whatever that matters. The one who intrigues me, though, is Jonathan Galante. He's the special teams coach. He's going to actually have a special teams coach, Mark. Unlike Billy, who had a game changer or whatever that thing was called, and he didn't change anything. He did change games in the negative, Chris Couch, and you got Joe Houston, who did a pretty good job. But Galante was only with Tulane 1 year, but place kicker Patrick Durkin, special teams player of the year in the AAC 2020, 24 of 27. He brought his punter, Alec Clark, an Aussie kid, with him from Marshall, 46-8. And then they had a long snapper who was elite too, Jason, and we're not going to butcher your name, Arredondo, I believe. But all 3 of those guys could be coming with Galante as a package deal when the portal opens. I would not be surprised. And that would put them in good stead here, having lost Trey Smack, Rocco Underwood, a long snapper, and then Tommy Doman, who was certainly not Jeremy Crawshaw, but he was decent. So you could upgrade punter. You would have a very good kicker who would probably be on the level of Smack. And then you'd have a very good long snapper by all accounts. So I like that. That's a nice little deal there.
Yeah. And I think one of the guys we had already mentioned that I failed to mention was Phil Troutline. I think that was one of his better hires. Offensive line, again, go back to my thing. If you fix Florida's lines, you fix Florida.
Yeah. And then, and it's funny, real quickly, Billy didn't bring as many people from Louisiana, at least onto the assistant staff, as you might have thought. I was looking through it. I'm not going to go through them all. I don't want to give people, PTSD here, but he didn't bring a lot of people. Rob Sale was one of them that he probably kept too long, but the turnover on his staff was immense. They need to have some continuity with his staff.
And the turnover was there because he missed on guys. He missed on Mark Hockey and had to layer that. He missed on, his defense. Well, yeah, but Tony left him. He really missed on the young defensive coordinator, Austin Armstrong. He missed on him and had to layer that. And who was the third one? There were three guys he layered. Oh, special teams coach Chris Couch had to layer that. So it was really, some of that was misses. And then, again, I'll go back to this. There are people in the building who were like, how do you figure out that you have to fire a guy and not fire him? All three of those guys, Billy left them on staff after basically demoting them and hiring their replacements. And it's just a moronic, asinine, head-scratching way of doing business that there are people in the building who just could not believe that this was his way of fixing things, was to bring in a replacement and keep. I mean, imagine if somebody or AP decides to replace me, but instead of firing me, they hire somebody to do my job, and they want me sitting there, watching. I don't know, paying me to watch them. It'd be great.
Going and doing the interviews after the game and bringing the notes up.
Yeah, and it's how you end up with Mark Hockey being the director of motivation, and what is he doing? Well, he's eating nachos up in the press box. I mean, that's making $900,000 for it. It's unbelievable. 750, whatever. 750. It's an unreal situation that just goes to show you how much dysfunction was going on in that building, because Billy was given so much power and so much autonomy and such an empty checkbook, like an empty check, a blank check, to get it all done. And some of that's certainly, there's blame to be assigned elsewhere for that.
So we haven't even gotten to the biggest question on fans' mind, but we won't offer too much clarity because who knows what's going to happen. But who are the targets? Georgia quarterback Aaron Philos definitely is one. He played for Buster Faulkner, back up 2 seasons, broke all of Trevor Lawrence's records in Georgia, I believe, or maybe his passing yards record, and then had a ton of touchdown throws. Probably a dual threat kid, you got to think. He'll come here and compete with Tramell Jones Jr. If Aaron ends up in Gainesville. You're going to have to pay. Any quarterback is probably worth at least $1 million on the market right now, who's good at all. And so we'll see how that unfolds. Quarterback is obviously the biggest one. To me, number 2 is O-line. You've already mentioned it. Sumrall is all about focusing on building the lines, and it's a huge need. And I hear it's something Jadan Baugh is very curious in watching, because it's not like he's going to go to Texas and be running behind, the Great Wall there. I mean, Florida got 6 sacks of Arch Manning on that line, and they weren't a very good pass rushing team. But I would look north to Penn State. Phil Troutwine obviously is familiar with that roster and who the developmental guys are, the rotational types. He might not be bringing the guys who started that might look intriguing and obvious, but maybe a couple of guys we don't really know much about their path and their development and where they're at. I don't have names, but I plan to dig in. Another one is Shadre Hurst from Tulane is a name I've kind of heard that he's intriguing and good, and they would like to maybe lure to Gainesville. Keep an eye, too, on LSU. Had a couple of guys enter the portal. All-SEC freshman offensive tackle DJ Chester, teammate Tyree Adams. He coached in Louisiana. There's familiarity there, you got to think. An hour up the road, he probably knows a little bit about what was going on at LSU, more than he probably knew going on at wherever. Missouri, for example. I don't know any portal entries there, but I'm just throwing that out. So he's going to build the lines. You like to rant about the O-line. So do you have any more to share there, or are there other positions maybe?
Well, it's where Billy Napier, and I hate, again, I don't want to make it all about bashing Billy, because that's what happens, right?
It's too
But
late.
it is, but like I think that's where he made his biggest mistakes. Not only did he have 2 offensive line coaches that never seemed to work out, he was adamant that this line was going to be one of the best in the country, and they could run the ball on anybody. They could not. He had projects upon projects that never panned out on the offensive line, questionable recruiting on the offensive line. It was really where Florida went awry in terms of offensively. I'm not saying DJ wasn't an issue, or, obviously depth at receiver was an issue as well. But to me, the offensive line was first and foremost number one problem on this team. They weren't good enough, just weren't good enough up front, and never got developed. I don't know that Austin Barber was any better as a senior than when he first stepped foot into the starting lineup as a sophomore. I don't know that Jake Slaughter was he was a smart guy, and he was certainly better as a senior than when he first started against Utah. But, I didn't see this guy take a huge step from his junior to senior year. Nobody on that line did a Joakim jump, right? So it's just like you scratch your head going, where is it? But that's the lines are where I would expect him to fix it. Offensive, defensive line, they got to get more receivers in there. There was not enough depth at receiver under Billy Napier. He hit on some portal guys, thank goodness, because if they didn't, I don't know what they would have had. Certainly it looked like he hit on 2 freshmen last year with VB3 and Dallas Wilson. But, wide receiver development was never there. You got to get some depth at the running back position. I don't know if that means Jacoby Jackson comes back. The name I heard, Duke Clark is coming back. The name I heard, watch for this guy, Adam Mohammed, Washington Huskies. Ran 106 times for 523 yards, averaged 5 yards a carry, 5 touchdowns, had 100 yards against UCLA and 100 yards rushing against Oregon late in the season, filling in for the starter there. But he's in the transfer portal, and I've heard he's a target guy who worked with, played for Jed Fish. I think he played for Jed Fish. Maybe, and it was the era. He might have been, no, he's 2 years with Washington. So there you go.
Well, receiver, you mentioned Davian Gross. Don't forget, or Grosse. I'm not sure we'll get his name somewhat right one day here. But he was top 50 recruit. Got VB3. Abrams, I do like. James DiVirgilio, Gator Nation podcast, who watches film like, nobody on this beat, I don't think, right? He's very good at it. He loves his route running. He did get open, and he dropped a couple, but he improved as the season went on. I think there are some pieces there. You'd love to have Dallas Wilson in the mix. I'll throw one at you that would be intriguing if you don't get Dallas back. Cam Coleman's in the portal. He's going to be an expensive acquisition, but he is a special kid. You cover Auburn somehow at this point. I'm sure you ask yourself every day how it happened, but he's elite. I'm not saying they're going to spend $3 million on this kid, but if you're going to make a big hit and a big investment, he wouldn't be a bad place to put it. You pair him with that group without Dallas, that is, suddenly that'd be very intriguing. Tight end, you need guys. Tony Livingston, I mean, he's just a guy at this point. I think he has some ability, but I don't know. I think Amir Jackson, you're waiting to see maybe used differently. They need a tight end. But you know me, I love safeties.
Secondary, entire secondary.
They need a safety, man. They need a playmaker back there who they can move around and can do things. He can move them up, drop them into coverage. He can make plays on the ball. He can make some hits, set the tone. They have not had that since I don't even know who. I mean,
Kyle Pitts,
Matt Elam.
Safety, yeah.
I mean, they probably have had one or so. Marcus May was good.
Keanu Neal, Marcus May.
Keanu Neal. I mean, Kiki, I can't believe I forgot you. Sorry, buddy. But yeah, he wasn't a great cover guy, but he definitely set the tone physically. You need a player back there. Mark Long covered Ed Reed. I mean, I'm not saying you can get Ed Reed, but you need a guy who can be Ed Reed light. I thought Castell might be that guy. He had the skill set. He had the background as a corner. He just didn't trust his instincts if he had any, and he wasn't physical.
Yeah, cornerback as well. They've been decimated with injuries and portal defections at the cornerback. They're obviously going to lose some guys to graduation. So that's another one. I think you got to go get a bunch of cornerbacks and create some competition at that position group as well as safety.
Javari Flowers, Dijon Johnson, Kermani McLean, if he can start to play even close to his 5-star billing, could be a pretty good rotation, but you definitely want to bring in somebody, a veteran, a proven guy who can push that unit. All right, man. We've, rambling on, but we're going to do our picks. College football playoff. I'm
still in it.
Mark, I tell you, it isn't shabby. The college football playoff was shabby. I was 2-2, you're 1-3, but 60, 50, and 2, respectable. I started out like 21-7, not so much. 57, 53, and 2. Mark has been, he was way below 500 at one point. He's definitely closed a lot of ground. Not many games left, but God dang, what a slate of football games, dude. It's incredible. Cotton Bowl, Wednesday night. I have a date for New Year's Eve, thank God. Number 10, Miami, and number 2, Ohio State. The Buckeyes giving 9.5. I'm taking Miami. That front 7, I don't think they're going to win this game, but they could. That front 7, man, is legit. And I think they can put pressure on Ohio State. Indiana was able to. Texas was able to. They kept those scores down. I think Miami has that kind of defense. The problem with that team is Carson Beck. If he can just make a couple of plays, which is asking a lot of him in a big game, they, I think, can cover.
Miami beat the number 1 fraud in the college football playoff. Well, maybe the number 3 fraud behind the group of 5 teams, but the number 1 Power 4 fraud in Texas A&M. And that was not an easy, but I'm going with OSU. I just think Miami's got a path. There's no doubt. If they can if they can make it a sloppy slugfest and get down in the mud and make it one of those 14-10, 14-7 game, 17-14, Miami's got a chance, but I think OSU is too much talent.
Well, if Coach Sumrall is a Swamp Things listener or watcher, let's hope he becomes one. Tulane was not a fraud. They're just,
overmatched.
These teams, they just don't have the resources or the recruiting ability. And I'm just giving you a hard time. We don't want to get on Coach Sumrall's bad side out of the game.
You're trying to put me there.
No, I'm not. Right. We're trying to get back on his good side. We don't want to be calling Tulane a fraud. All right, then we get the most incredible day of college football in memory. Seriously, this is going back to the old New Year's days that we grew up on, right? Where you would wake up and it was this ball all day, man. From the time we were like Nolan's age, 10 years old, just consumed with great games, capped by like the Orange Bowl, right, at night. Or the Sugar Bowl. Is this like you got games all day long? We get number 5 Oregon versus number 4 Texas Tech at noon in the Orange Bowl. Who you got? -5. Ducks are giving 5. Ducks are giving 2.5. Edit, Wesley. You can't do it on this. Sorry.
Yeah, Oregon could come in there and blow them out because they have that kind of ability, right? The big playability. But I'm going to roll with Texas Tech. I just think getting 2.5, I'm going to give them a shot.
I'm taking Texas Tech. Jacob Rodriguez, I trust. That front 7 is probably might be the nastiest in the country. Oklahoma, Miami, and Tech probably have the 3 best. Indiana's not a bad one. Let's shift to them. They have a nice front 7 too. They're taking on Alabama, 4 o'clock. Indiana's given a touchdown, unbeaten Indiana against number 9 Alabama that's surging, coming on. Questions around that program about Kellen DeBoer's future and all that put to rest with the win at Oklahoma.
I already wrote down your pick. I know who you're picking. Go.
Well, I'm taking Sig. I can't bet against Sig. They're giving 7. Buddy of mine called last night. He said, man, that's the easiest money in the world, taking Bama. And I said, ye of little faith. I mean, you have receivers, you have a Heisman quarterback, you have a very good defense, and you have a team that executes with flawless precision. I will take the Hoosiers in the win.
13-10, they beat Ohio State. 27-24, they beat Penn State. 20-15, they beat Iowa. I mean, they've played some close games and been on the good side.
27-20, Oregon pulled out late.
Let's see what Alabama's defense, getting healthy, can do. I'm taking Roll Tide.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably foolhardy, but I got to stick with my guys. Sugar Bowl, nightcap. We got Georgia giving 6.5 to Lane Kiffinless Ole Miss. Intriguing matchup. Personally, of the 4, this is the game I'm kind of like, The other 3 I'm more intrigued with.
Yeah, I'm taking Georgia. I have waffled all year on Georgia. I don't know if they're good. I was going back to listen to some old pods to catch up on some picks, and I was like, man, I picked one week I'm all in on Georgia, then the next week I'm like, Georgia's not very good, and I watched Georgia, should have lost this, that. I'm gonna go with Georgia until I see somebody out coach Kirby Smart. And I would pick, if Lane was there, I think I'd pick Ole Miss. But without Lane, I'm going to give the edge to the, what is it? Somebody once told me, he said, bet on the jockey. If you don't know, bet on the jockey. Well, the jockey here is Kirby Smart. He's got himself a national championship, maybe 2. 2. So I'm going to go with Georgia.
I think this is the easiest pick of all. I'm giving the 6.5 and taking Georgia. I think Georgia looks like maybe the team to beat. Everyone's picking Ohio State. I like Georgia at this point. That defense, I mean, what it did to Alabama that day, he just put Kalen DeBoer's offense in a bag. I mean, they just beat them down. And I don't know that Ole Miss can withstand that, even despite the playmaking and ability of that team. All right, shifting finally, Mark, some basketball in Foley's Corner. Our weekly nod to the former athletic director, whose focus on all-around excellence is still being felt. You were at the game last night. I was driving back from Virginia, long slog back from my home, and I missed the Dartmouth game. Sounds like I'm glad I did. Todd Golden wishes he had.
Yeah, it was not a good finish. Great start, 53-27. Great start to the second half. Florida going up by 32 points, but just dreadful from there. Florida ended up getting outscored in the second half, 45-41. Dartmouth hit 8 of 15 3-pointers in the second half, finished with 12 shots from behind the arc, and that was basically the entire scouting report was don't let them shoot threes, and they let them get off 27 of them and make 12. But some good positives. Certainly, Alex Condon looked good, 17 points. Ruben Chenyelu with his 7th double-double, 13 and 12. 5 guys in double figures. Boogie Flan had 5 assists. But again, the issue with this team reared its ugly head again. 5 for 18 from three-point range. Can Florida shoot enough threes, make enough threes to be a real factor moving forward? I don't know the answer. I certainly think there's flashing red lights and alarm bells and everything because, I just wonder. But that's their big question going into SEC play. Can they play make? Can they shot make? Can they have playmakers in crunch time? Can they make threes when needed? The answer so far is no.
The good teams tend to make between 7.5 to 10 threes, right? The really good teams, a game.
Yeah.
Average.
And if you make 12, you're unbeatable.
Yeah, this team doesn't come close to hitting even 7.5, much less the higher end. And it's going to be costly. Their rebounding is incredible. Maybe it can mask that in certain games, if not many games. But in the biggest games, you have to hit some of those threes. And one thing you didn't mention, you praised Condon, but is the turnovers, because you brought that up earlier today. He had 4. I think he had 2 games with 6 earlier. That offense is going through him quite a bit. He's a very good passer. I don't think I've seen much improvement in his post game. Maybe it's just not to be because he doesn't have a whole lot of comfort with the ball and the post, right? And he doesn't have a little fadeaway or a hook or anything. Chinielu's development in the inside game is noticeable. I mean, he finishes better than he did. He was starting to finish better at the end of last season. He's finishing better this year. He's got that little bank off the glass, little hook flip. I think we're going to have a Chinielu leap instead of a Joachim jump. I predicted this summer. I'll go back to it. I think the guy's got tremendous physical tools. His hands are terrific. He's an incredible rebounder. You didn't mention Hagg-Logden had 13. He's another guy who just struggles to finish. If you're getting 60-some boards, as you pointed out, and getting only X number of second chance points, I don't have it in front of me. I didn't go to the game, so that's why I don't have a box score, Phil. But they
out-rebounded them 60 to 24, plus 36 on the boards, 56-20 in the paint, but second chance, only 23-5 second chance. And the real issue, it was 8-8 fast break. I mean, they just didn't do a lot in fast break in Dartmouth.
Yeah, if you get all those rebounds, you got to capitalize. Look, in Todd we trust. I think he's going to figure it out. He's going to get his rotation down. They need to still establish an eighth guy. They have Irby off the bench. They have Mike off the bench. And then they need another guy. Give us on this real quickly, because it is a real big question. You're going to SEC play. You're going to have injuries. You're going to have fatigue. It becomes a grind. It's 18 games. And then you get to the postseason, and that's a real grind. Who is going to step up and become those 8th and 9th guys? At least even an 8th, you can really get something out of.
Yeah, Todd said it last night. He's trying to find number 8. It started out the season with CJ Ingram was their number 8, wasn't working. Then he moved to Isaiah Brown, wasn't working. He gave Alex Lloyd a shot here in this recent weeks against lesser competition. Alex Lloyd showed he was not ready. Last game, it would turn to Alex Kovachev, who's a transfer from Sacramento State, I believe it is. He went 0 for 3, all from three-point range last night, was -6 in 10 minutes of action. It's not him either. I think it's Isaiah Brown. I think you got to go back to Isaiah Brown. He's experienced. He's big. He's strong. He can shoot the three. He scored 6 points last night in 8 minutes. Also fouled twice, but he was +6. To me, that's your guy. That's the guy who needs to be number 6 or number 8 off the bench. Basically, your 4th backcourt guy, and roll with him and develop him and see what you got by the middle or end of SEC play.
Yeah, his brother AJ could have been that guy, but apparently he had the shoulder injury and maybe hasn't developed or gotten his health back to the level where he wants to burn his red shirt. We did see that with Micah Hagg-Logden during SEC play last year, a different injury, a gruesome injury. But who knows? Maybe if it gets to the level they need to bring A.J. Brown out of his red shirt and play him. I like your Isaiah Brown theory. I have another. I say you start playing Ollie big minutes.
4 big men. Play it. You move Thomas Houck to the 2. You play Condon at the 3, Chinielu at the 4, Ollie at the 5, and you get Boogie off the floor, and you let Xavier Lee run the point. Boom. Problem solved.
It would be good copy. We would get a lot of clicks if Ollie suddenly moved in the starting lineup. Last one, women's basketball, 12-3, Mark. Liv McGill has been just a force. She's also a turnover waiting to happen. She has the ball in her hands a lot, so that comes with it. She needs to clean that aspect up of her game. Mariah O'Neal is certainly developing into a pretty nice player, co-player of the week. Shaq's daughter, as everyone knows. That's a nice little 1-2 punch there, but now it's the SEC. And they go to Tennessee to open. And this isn't the Tennessee at Pat Summit, but it's a good Tennessee program still. Katie Caldwell, I believe, is that the coach? It might be Katie, but it's Caldwell. She is a good coach, good program, and we're going to find out a lot about them early. This is a big year for Kelly Ray Finley. She needs to show something in the SEC. They need to at least, I think, finish in the upper half of that league, probably to feel good about the future under Kelly Ray Finley. I don't know what the barometer is going to be in Scott Strickland's mind, but they already have shown improvement in the early part of the season, though they did have one loss or two. They had one without Liv, but they had one with Liv. I forget who it was. Was it who did they lose? They lost to someone. Remember, it was like
Navy or somebody up there.
It was last week. It doesn't matter. They lost to someone where it was kind of like, that wasn't a very good loss to have at home. But 12-3 is not nothing. You win 8 games in the SEC, you're getting the NCAA tournament, and winning 8 of 18 should not be too much to ask if you're a program that's improving, you would think, right?
Yeah, it's not. If you've got talent, if you've developed, this is year 4 for Kelly Ray, or 5. Year 4. If you've done it right, you should have enough talent to, the SEC is not wide open, but it's certainly top heavy. There's 2 or 3 really, really good teams, and then everybody else. If you've developed properly and built your program, you should be able to win a lot of those games against the middle of the SEC.
Awesome. A long conversation, but we've been off for a bit and a lot to catch up on. Thanks for the conversation, Mark.
Thanks for having me, as always.
And we also want to thank our faithful producer, Wesley Alden, for her continued efforts. The 3 of us appreciate everyone who took time from their busy lives to join us. Until next time.
Thank you for listening to Swamp Things, your Florida Gators podcast. For more coverage, visit OrlandoSentinel.com and APnews.com. On Twitter, follow Edgar at OS Gators and Mark at AP Mark Long. Please subscribe to this podcast, share it on social media, and review it on iTunes. See you next time.